The baby wasn't crying anymore. That's what made Karen Vale stop the car. Not the storm. Not the wind ripping through the mountain pass like teeth on metal. Not even the fact that his gas tank was running on fumes and his phone had no signal for the last 40 miles. It was the silence where sound should have been. Karen's hands locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white against cracked leather. Through the blur of snow hammering his windshield, something small and dark huddled against the mile marker post. Too still. Too wrong. Don't, he whispered to himself. Don't you dare. But his foot was already on the brake. The Honda slid to a stop, tires crunching over ice that shouldn't exist this early in October. Northern Nevada didn't do snow like this. Not yet. Not this hard. The kind of cold that made bones ache before skin even registered the temperature. Karen cut the engine. Silence swallowed everything except his own breathing, too fast, too shallow. The suppressants he'd taken that morning were wearing off. He could feel it in the way his pulse jumped, the way his skin felt too tight, the way every instinct screamed at him to drive away and forget what he'd seen. Male omegas didn't stop for strangers. That's what his mother taught him before she died. That's what the shelters reinforced. That's what every Alpharon job he'd lost had proven. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. His door opened before logic could stop him. The cold hit like a fist. Snow bit into his cheeks, his neck, the thin jacket that was never meant for weather like this. Karen stumbled forward, boots slipping. One hand braced against the hood of his car as wind tried to shove him backward. The shape near the post wasn't moving. Hey! His voice cracked, lost in the storm. Hey, are you? He saw the blanket first. Hospital blue, soaked through, wrapped around something too small to be out here alone. Then he saw the skin, gray pale, lips tinged purple. A baby. Karen's knees hit the ground so hard pain shot up his thighs. His hands moved without permission, peeling back the wet fabric, exposing a face no bigger than his palm. Eyes closed, chest barely rising. No, 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 no. The infant's skin was ice. Karen ripped off his jacket, didn't feel the cold anymore, just terror. He pulled the baby against his chest, one hand cupping the tiny head, the other pressed to the fragile back. Ribs like bird bones. Breath coming in shallow gasps that might stop any second. Stay with me, Karen begged. Please, please stay. His bare palm touched the baby's wrist. Pain exploded. Not cold, not wind, not anything natural. White hot, searing, ancient. Karen screamed, tried to pull back, but his hand wouldn't move. Locked in place, fused. The baby's skin burned against his, and something underneath, something deeper than flesh, deeper than bone, responded. The mark flared. Not visible, not yet, but undeniable. A brand, a claim, a recognition his Omega instincts understood before his brain could catch up. What? Karen's voice died. His wrist throbbed, burned, screamed. The pain didn't stop. It spread, up his arm, across his chest, settling into a rhythm that wasn't his own heartbeat. Someone else's. No, 3 someone else's. The baby's eyes fluttered open. Not infant blank, not helpless, aware. Karen's hand finally released. He fell backward into the snow, gasping, cradling his wrist like it had been shattered. The skin looked normal. No burn, no mark, nothing. But he felt it, pulsing, alive, waiting. The baby whimpered, and instinct overrode terror. Karen grabbed the child, stumbled to his feet, ran. His car door hung open, interior light cutting through the storm like a target. He didn't care. He shoved the baby inside his jacket, against his skin, felt the icy body start pulling warmth from him like a parasite. Good. Let it take. Let it survive. He cranked the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, caught. Heat blasted from the vents. Not enough. Never enough. Karen turned the car around, tires spinning, fishtailing, finally gripping asphalt. In the rearview mirror, the mile marker disappeared into white nothing. No footprints led away from it. No tire tracks. No sign anyone had ever been there. Just emptiness swallowing evidence. Karen's wrist burned hotter. Somewhere, miles away, in 3 different cities, 3 men stopped mid-sentence. Their wrists flared in unison. Not pain. Recognition. The baby tucked against Karen's chest made a sound. Not a cry, but something closer to a purr. Satisfied. Safe. Karen's hands shook on the wheel. "What are you?" he whispered. The mark pulsed once. Twice. An answer he didn't want to understand. Because every Omega knew the stories. Triplet alphas weren't myths. They were warnings. Genetic anomalies who shared one bond across 3 separate bodies. Men who controlled empires not through violence, but through systems so vast and silent you never saw them coming. No Omega survived being marked by them accidentally. Yet the burn didn't fade. Karen drove faster, snow blurring into white static, the baby's heartbeat syncing with the rhythm under his skin. Behind him, invisible and patient, the hunt had already begun. What do you think the mark means? Drop your theory below. The apartment door wouldn't lock. Karen jiggled the key 3 times, shoulder pressed against the frame, before the bolt finally clicked. His hands were still shaking. Had been shaking since the highway, since the burn, since the moment he'd realized the baby in his arms was breathing steady now, color returning to its cheeks, like nothing had almost killed it an hour ago. He slid down the door until his back hit the floor. The baby, still unnamed, still wrapped in Karen's jacket, lay against his chest. Warm, alive, wrong in ways Karen couldn't name yet. His wrist throbbed. Karen pressed his thumb against the spot where the pain lived. Nothing. No raised skin. No discoloration. Just the same pale inner wrist he'd always had, scarred from a childhood burn that never quite healed right. But underneath something moved, like a second heartbeat. Or 3. Karen's phone buzzed. He jumped hard enough that the baby stirred, tiny fist curling against his shirt. The screen lit up. Unknown number. Local area code. He didn't answer. It rang 4 times. Stopped. Started again immediately. Karen powered it off. The silence in his apartment felt heavier than the storm outside. 1 room. Kitchenette in the corner. Bathroom with a door that didn't close all the way. Futon that doubled as a couch. This was what $600 a month bought you in Blackridge. Just far enough from civilization that landlords didn't ask questions, but close enough that Karen could still pick up shifts at the gas station when they were desperate. Which they never were. Not for a male Omega. The baby made a small sound. Not distress. Just awareness. Karen looked down at the tiny face. Maybe 3 months old. Maybe less. Features still soft. Undefined. But the eyes were too focused. Too knowing. "You're supposed to be dead," Karen whispered. "You know that, right?" The baby blinked. Once. Slow. Karen's wrist burned hotter. He stood too fast, legs unsteady, and carried the baby to the bathroom. The sink was small, basin stained from rust the landlord never fixed. Karen turned on the hot water, waited for it to stop running brown, then dampened a towel. The hospital blanket peeled away easily. Underneath, the baby wore nothing. No diaper, no clothes, just skin marked by cold and something else. Faint bruising along the ribs. Old injuries. Healing wrong. Karen's stomach twisted. He cleaned carefully, gently, watched the baby's face for signs of pain. Nothing. Just those eyes tracking his movements with inhuman focus. When Karen's fingers brushed the baby's wrist, the same wrist he'd touched in the snow, heat flared again. Not painful this time, just present, insistent, connected. Karen pulled back fast. The baby started crying. Not the weak, stuttering sound from the highway. A full-throated wail that cut through the apartment like a siren. Okay. Karen scooped the baby up, pressed it against his chest again, skin to skin. The crying stopped immediately. The baby's heart synced with his. The burn in Karen's wrist settled into a low, steady pulse. This was wrong. This was dangerous. This was everything Karen had been taught to avoid. But the baby was alive because of him, and the mark wouldn't let him forget it. Cairn wrapped the baby in a clean towel, the only clean one he owned, and carried it back to the futon. Outside, wind rattled the single window. Snow piled against the glass. The storm wasn't stopping. His phone was still off. Cairn turned it back on. 7 missed calls. All unknown numbers. No voicemails. His hands hovered over the keypad. He should call someone. Authorities. Hospitals. Anyone. But male Omegas didn't call for help. They disappeared into systems that didn't care if they came out the other side. And a baby with no records, no family, no explanation. That was a problem that would swallow them both. Cairn's wrist pulsed. He looked down. For just a second, less than a heartbeat, the skin shimmered. Not a burn. Not a scar. A mark. Black lines, intricate and geometric, flared beneath the surface like ink bleeding through paper. Then vanished. Cairn's breath stopped. Outside, a car engine idled to life. He crossed to the window, careful not to disturb the baby sleeping against him. The parking lot below was empty except for his Honda and a black SUV. Tinted windows, engine running, parked 3 spaces down. Cairn hadn't heard it arrive. The passenger window rolled down an inch. Not enough to see inside, just enough to make it clear. Someone was watching. Cairn stepped back from the glass. His wrist burned so hot he thought the skin might split. The baby slept on. Peaceful. Safe. The SUV's engine cut off. The silence that followed was worse than the storm. Cairn locked every window, checked the door twice, wedged a chair under the handle even though it wouldn't stop anyone who really wanted in. Then he sat on the futon, back against the wall, baby cradled in his arms, and waited. The mark pulsed in rhythm with his fear. Somewhere, 3 men reviewed the same security footage. A snowy highway, a shaking Omega, a baby that should have been erased. One of them smiled. Not kindness, not mercy, recognition. The hunt had rules. The prey just didn't know them yet. Cairn's wrist flared once more, hot enough to make him gasp. Outside, the SUV's headlights flicked on, then off. A signal, or a promise. Would you trust the mark, or run? Comment below. The call came through on 3 separate phones at exactly 2:47 a.m. Darius Rook answered first. Always did. Eldest by 8 minutes, though those minutes had carved out a lifetime of responsibility he never asked for. His penthouse office overlooked the Chicago skyline, glass walls reflecting a city that never stopped burning money. He didn't turn from the window when his phone buzzed, just watched his reflection darken as the screen lit up. 1 word. No caller ID. Marked. His wrist caught fire. Darius didn't move, didn't flinch. Let the pain settle into his bones like an old language he'd forgotten how to speak. Then he pressed the phone to his ear. Talk. The voice on the other end was clipped. Military. One of their trackers. Subject located. Male Omega. 26. No pack affiliation. No records past juvie. He's got the kid. Alive. Both alive. Darius's jaw tightened. The baby should have been dead 3 days ago. Exposure. Hypothermia. The usual cleanup when bloodlines got messy. Their father's contingency plan. The heir no one was supposed to find. Should have been buried under snow and silence. Instead, an Omega had touched him, and the mark had answered. Status? Darius asked. Omegas holed up in Blackridge. Apartment complex, northeast side. He's scared. Hasn't called authorities. Hasn't reached out to anyone. Surveillance. Active. Unit parked outside. He saw us. Darius's wrist pulsed again. Not pain anymore. Awareness. He could feel the Omega's fear from 1,500 miles away. Taste it in the back of his throat like copper. Pull back, Darius said. Silence on the other end. Then, sir, you heard me. Pull back. No contact. Let him breathe. The bloodline protocol. I wrote the protocol. Pull back. The call ended. Darius set his phone on the desk, rolled up his sleeve. The mark was visible now. Black geometric lines spiraling from wrist to elbow. interlocking in patterns that shouldn't exist in nature. Ancient, unbreakable, and echoed on two other bodies. In Boston, Ezra Rook was mid-negotiation when his wrist flared. He didn't stop talking, didn't acknowledge the pain. Just finished dismantling the senator's argument about weapons export limitations while his skin burned underneath his custom suit. The other men in the room never noticed. Alphas like Ezra didn't show weakness. They weaponized it in others. When the meeting ended and the room cleared, Ezra locked the door. His phone was already ringing. Darius. He answered without speaking. "It's confirmed," Darius said. Ezra looked down at his wrist. The mark had been dormant for years. A genetic quirk their father called a gift and their enemies called a curse. 3 bodies, 1 bond, shared pain, shared power, shared everything. Except now. "He touched the baby," Ezra said, not a question. "And the mark chose him." Ezra's laugh was cold. "Chose? Like we had a say in it." "You felt it too." Ezra had. Still did. A foreign heartbeat underneath his own. Terrified. Defiant. Omega. Everything their world had taught them to dominate or discard. But the mark didn't care about hierarchy. Cared about survival. "What's the play?" Ezra asked. "We wait. Wait." Ezra's tone flattened. "An unmated Omega with our father's bloodline heir, and you want to wait? He hasn't run. Hasn't sold the kid. Hasn't called the feds. He's protecting it. Or he's too scared to move." "Exactly," Darius said. "Fear keeps him contained. Pressure breaks him. We need him stable." "Why?" The question hung between them. Brothers. Partners. Co-rulers of an empire built on violence made invisible. But this was different. "Because the mark won't let us take the baby by force," Darius said quietly. "You feel it, don't you? The resistance. Like trying to sever your own arm." Ezra pressed his thumb against his wrist. The mark pulsed. Warm. Protective. Connected to an Omega he'd never met. "Thorn's going to hate this," Ezra said. "Thorn hates everything. He'll want the kid eliminated. Protocol demands it." Protocol was written before the mark activated. Silence. Then Ezra. "So what do we tell him?" "Nothing. Yet." In New Orleans, Thorn Rook felt the burn and smiled. He was in a club that didn't exist on any map. Basement level, music so loud it vibrated teeth. The kind of place where political leverage was bought with blackmail and blood. Thorn's specialty. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. Let Darius scramble. Let Ezra calculate. Thorn had always been the wild card, youngest by 12 minutes, and the only one who'd ever questioned whether their father's empire was worth inheriting. The mark on his wrist burned hotter. Thorn excused himself from the booth, stepped into the hallway where the music dulled to a muffled throb. He rolled up his sleeve. There. The mark. Fully visible now. Identical to his brother's. Proof they weren't separate men but fractured pieces of the same impossible whole. And somewhere, an Omega carried the other half of this bond. Thorn's smile widened. He didn't call Darius back. Didn't need to. They'd all felt it. The moment the baby's skin touched the Omega's palm. The moment the mark woke up. Their father had engineered them to be perfect. 3 alphas. 1 bloodline. Unbreakable. But he'd never planned for this. An unmated Omega. A forgotten heir. A mark that refused to fade. Thorn pushed open the club's back exit. Cold air hit him, thick with humidity and rot. New Orleans in October still felt like summer dying slow. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. "Thorn." Darius's voice. Tight. Controlled. "I know. We need to meet." "No," Thorn said. "We need to let him run." "What?" "He's going to bolt. Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. The fear's too sharp. He'll run, and when he does..." Thorn's wrist pulsed. "We follow. That's not the plan. Your plan is to wait like prey. I'd rather hunt." "He's not prey." Thorn laughed. "Then what is he, Darius?" "You felt the mark. It's not asking permission. It's claiming." Silence stretched between them. Then Darius. If you go near him, you'll feel it. I know. That's the point. Thorn ended the call. He looked down at his wrist one more time. The mark pulsed in rhythm with a heartbeat 900 miles away. Terrified, protective, Omega, and somehow, impossibly, there's... Thorn's smile turned sharp. The hunt had rules, but he'd never been good at following them. Back in Blackridge, Cairn woke to silence. The SUV was gone, but his wrist burned hotter than ever. Who do you think will reach Cairn first? Drop your guess below. The Alpha didn't knock. Cairn woke to the sound of his apartment door unlocking from the outside. Not forced, not broken, just opened, like whoever stood on the other side had a key that shouldn't exist. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up. The baby, still wrapped in the towel, still sleeping, pressed against his chest. His back hit the wall. No weapon, no plan. Just prey instincts screaming run while logic reminded him there was nowhere to go. The door swung inward. The man who stepped through didn't look like a threat. That was the first lie. He was tall, maybe 6'3", but moved like height was irrelevant. Expensive coat, dark jeans, boots that were too clean for the snow outside. Black hair cut sharp, jawline sharper. Eyes that tracked Cairn's position. The baby, the locked window, the wedged chair, all in the span of a heartbeat. Calculating. Cold. Alpha. Cairn's wrist exploded with heat. The man stopped. His hand went to his own wrist, fingers pressing against the sleeve of his coat. His eyes widened just a fraction, just enough to prove he felt it too. The mark. Burning. Answering. Don't, Cairn said. His voice cracked. Don't come closer. The Alpha's gaze flicked to the baby. Something shifted in his expression. Not softening, just recognition. Like he'd found something he'd been hunting for and wasn't sure if he wanted it anymore. You touched him, the Alpha said. Not a question. A confirmation. Cairn's grip tightened on the baby. I don't know what you're talking about. Your wrist is burning right now. Same as mine. Cairn's denial died. Because it was. Burning so hot he thought the skin might peel away. The Alpha took one step forward. Cairn flinched back. His shoulders hit the wall. Nowhere left to go. Stop. The word came out broken. Desperate. Please. The Alpha stopped. The silence between them stretched. Cairn could hear his own heartbeat. Could hear the baby's. Could hear, impossibly, the Alpha's. 3 rhythms. Sinking. The Alpha crouched. Slowly. Deliberately. Lowering himself until he was no longer towering, just present. Eye level. Still too close. Still too dangerous. But not attacking. My name is Darius, the Alpha said. His voice was low. Controlled. The kind of tone that made people obey without understanding why. And I'm not here to hurt you. Then why are you here? Cairn's voice shook. Darius's eyes dropped to the baby. For him. No. The refusal was automatic. Instinctive. Cairn turned his body, shielding the baby even though he knew. It wouldn't matter if this Alpha decided to take him. But Darius didn't move. He just watched. Like Cairn was a puzzle he hadn't expected to solve. You don't understand what you're holding, Darius said. He's a baby. That's all I need to understand. He's a bloodline heir to an empire you don't want to meet. Cairn's laugh was bitter. Then take him. You're the Alpha. You've got the power. Take him and leave. Darius's jaw tightened. I can't. Why not? The Alpha's hand lifted. Slowly, he pulled back his sleeve. The mark was black, intricate, geometric lines spiraling from wrist to elbow, alive in ways that defied nature. And as Cairn stared, his own wrist flared in response, invisible but undeniable. Because you marked him first, Darius said, and the bond won't let me take him from you. Cairn's knees almost gave out. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter. Intent isn't part of the equation. The baby stirred. A small sound. Not distress. Just awareness. And before Cairn could stop it, the baby's tiny hand reached out. Toward Darius. Cairn's breath stopped. Darius froze. The baby's fingers opened, closed, grasping at air, at something Karen couldn't see but felt in the way his wrist burned hotter. Darius's expression cracked, just for a second. Long enough for Karen to see something underneath the cold. Confusion, longing, fear. The alpha reached out. Slow, careful. Let the baby's fingers wrap around his thumb. The baby cooed. Darius exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Karen watched this man, this alpha who'd broken into his apartment, who radiated power and control and danger, go completely still, captured by a 3-month-old's grip. "He knows you," Karen whispered. Darius didn't answer, just kept staring at the baby, at the tiny fingers holding onto him like he mattered. Then the baby's other hand reached for Karen. The mark pulsed. Once, twice, binding. Darius pulled back fast. The baby cried sharp, immediate. Both men flinched at the sound. Karen pressed the baby closer, shushing, soothing, feeling the tiny body calm against his chest. When the crying stopped, Darius was standing again. Distance restored. Walls rebuilt. "You have 2 choices," he said, voice cold again. Controlled. "You can keep running, keep hiding, keep pretending this mark doesn't exist. And when the others find you, because they will, they won't be as patient as I am." "Others?" Karen's voice cracked. "2 more. My brothers. We share the mark. We share the bond. And they're coming whether you want them to or not." Karen's stomach dropped. "Or," Darius continued, "you can let me protect you. Both of you." "Why would you do that?" Darius's eyes locked on his. Gray, cold, honest. "Because the mark won't let me walk away." The baby yawned against Karen's chest. Trusting. Safe. Karen looked at the man standing in his apartment. The alpha who could destroy him with a word. The stranger connected to him by something older and stronger than logic. "I don't even know your last name," Karen said. Darius's smile was sharp. "Rook." The name hit Karen like a fist. Everyone knew the Rooks. Everyone. Syndicate power. Political leverage. Empire built on silence and violence made invisible. And Karen had marked their bloodline. His wrist burned so hot he thought it might scar. Darius turned toward the door. "You've got 24 hours. After that, my brothers stop waiting. And they don't ask permission." He paused in the doorway. Didn't look back. "Lock the door behind me. Not that it'll matter." Then he was gone. Karen stood in the center of his apartment, holding a baby that might destroy him, marked by a bond he didn't understand, and waited for his hands to stop shaking. They didn't. Outside, a second SUV pulled into the parking lot. This one midnight blue. The passenger window rolled down. A man with lighter hair and sharper eyes stared up at Karen's window. Ezra Rook smiled. The mark on his wrist flared, and Karen realized 24 hours was a lie. The hunt was already here. "How would you survive this? Comment your escape plan below." The social worker's name was Mrs. Philippichan, and she didn't believe a single word Karen said. He could see it in the way she held her pen, poised above the intake form, not writing, just hovering, waiting for him to slip. "And you said you found the baby where?" Her voice was polite, clinical, the kind of tone that meant she'd heard every lie before. "On the highway." Karen kept his hands folded in his lap so she wouldn't see them shaking. The baby, dressed now in donated clothes from the church bin, slept in the carrier beside his chair, oblivious, safe. Mile marker 47. During the storm, Mrs. Chen's pen tapped the paper. Once, twice. "That was 4 days ago." "Yes. And you didn't call authorities immediately because?" Because Karen was a male Omega and authorities meant questions meant systems that swallowed people like him without documentation or care. Because the mark on his wrist wouldn't stop burning. Because 3 alphas were hunting him. "I was scared," Karen said. "True enough. I didn't know what to do. So you kept a child with no identification, no medical records, no guardian, in your apartment for 4 days. I was trying to keep him alive." Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change. She wrote something down. Karen couldn't see what. Probably unreliable or suspicious or male omega, which was the same thing in her world. The hospital confirmed the baby is healthy, she said. Surprisingly healthy for a child exposed to those conditions. That's good. It's unusual. The word hung between them. Karen's wrist throbbed. Mr. Vale. Mrs. Chun set her pen down, folded her hands. The universal gesture of I'm about to ruin your life. I need to be frank with you. The state has protocols for situations like this. Abandoned infants require immediate placement in protective custody while we investigate origins, potential family, legal guardianship. I'm taking care of him. You're not a registered foster parent. You have no legal standing. And frankly, her eyes flicked down to the form, to the box marked designation. Your status as an unmated male omega raises questions about your ability to provide stable care. There it was. The truth underneath every polite question. Karen's hands clenched. I saved his life. That's admirable, but it doesn't grant you parental rights. Then what happens to him? He'll be placed in a licensed facility while we search for next of kin. And if there's no next of kin? Mrs. Chen's silence was answer enough. The baby would disappear into a system that didn't care if he came out the other side. Another file, another number, another casualty of a world that only protected the people it deemed worth protecting. Karen stood. I'm not giving him up. Mr. Vale, you can't make me. Mrs. Chen's expression hardened. Actually, I can. If you refuse to cooperate, I'm authorized to remove the child from your custody immediately. Karen's wrist burned white-hot. The baby woke, not crying, just aware, eyes open, tracking. And then the door to Mrs. Chen's office opened. The man who stepped through wasn't Darius. Lighter hair, lighter eyes, same bone-deep power that made the air feel heavier. Ezra Rook. He didn't look at Karen, just at Mrs. Chen. I need to interrupt. Mrs. Chen frowned. This is a private consultation. Not anymore. Ezra's tone wasn't raised. Didn't need to be. He moved to the desk, set down a folder, opened it. These are the completed custody documents for the infant currently designated as baby Do 10 to 19. Signed, notarized, legally binding. Mrs. Chun stared. I don't understand. Paternity test results. Attached. The child is a Rook bloodline heir. We're claiming legal guardianship. Karen's breath stopped. Mrs. Chun flipped through the documents. Her frown deepened. This is highly irregular. It's legal. Ezra's eyes finally shifted to Karen. Cold. Assessing. And it removes your department from liability. We still need to complete the investigation. No, you don't. Ezra leaned forward. Just slightly. Just enough. The Rook family has legal teams in 6 states and political leverage in 12. If you push this, you'll spend the next year buried in motions and countermotions while your department's funding gets quietly audited. Or, he straightened, you can close the case, declare the child safe, move on. Mrs. Chen's jaw tightened, but Karen saw the moment she broke. The moment the system decided protecting itself mattered more than protecting one baby. I'll need to verify these documents, she said. Take your time. Ezra smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. We'll wait. Mrs. Chun left the office. Door clicking shut behind her. Karen grabbed the baby carrier. I'm not giving him to you. I'm not asking you to. Then what is this? Ezra's wrist flexed. He didn't show the mark. Didn't need to. Karen felt it. Burning. Answering. This, Ezra said, is me keeping you out of a system that will erase you both. You're welcome. I didn't ask for your help. No, you asked Darius. Same thing. Karen's hands tightened on the carrier. He told you. He didn't have to. I felt it the moment you touched the baby. Same as Thorn. Same as Darius. We're connected now. All 4 of us. Ezra's eyes dropped to the sleeping infant. Something flickered in his expression. Too fast to name. You marked him. He marked you. And now we're responsible for both of you whether you like it or not. I don't want your responsibility. Too bad. Ezra moved toward the door. Paused. Mrs. Chun will approve the custody transfer. You'll be listed as temporary guardian under Rook family sponsorship. That buys you protection, housing, resources, everything you need to keep him safe. And what do you get? Ezra looked back. The smile returned. Sharp, honest. Time. The door opened. Mrs. Chun returned. Her expression was carefully neutral, professional. Everything checks out, she said. Clipped, defeated. I'll process the paperwork. Karen wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but the mark on his wrist pulsed. Warm, steady, insistent, and the baby cooed like none of this was wrong. Ezra left without another word. Mrs. Chun wouldn't meet Karen's eyes as she filled out the forms. 20 minutes later, Karen walked out of the building with the baby. Legally protected, legally bound, legally owned by men he didn't trust. The midnight blue SUV was waiting. Ezra leaned against it, watching. Get in, he said. We need to move you somewhere safer. I have an apartment. You had an apartment. Past tense. It's compromised. By who? Ezra's wrist flared. He pulled back his sleeve. The mark was identical to Darius's. Black, intricate, alive. By the people looking for him. And now that the paperwork's filed, they know exactly where to look. Behind them, a car slowed. Windows tinted. Engine quiet. Not black. Not blue. Crimson. Ezra's expression darkened. Get in the car. Now. The crimson car's window rolled down. A man with darker hair and sharper eyes stared at Karen. Thorn Rook. His smile was all teeth. The mark on Karen's wrist burned hotter than ever. And he realized he hadn't been saved. He'd been claimed. Which brother would you trust? Drop your answer below. The gun wasn't pointed at Karen. It was pointed at the baby. Thorn stood 5 feet away, arm extended, weapon steady. Not threatening, not yet, just present. A statement written in metal and intent. Put him in the car, Thorn said, voice calm, almost bored. Or I make the choice for you. Karen's body locked. The carrier pressed against his chest. The baby cooed. Unaware, innocent. And Karen's wrist burned so hot he thought the bone might crack. Ezra moved, fast, positioning himself between Thorn and Karen. Lower the weapon. No. Thorn's eyes never left Karen. He needs to understand what protection costs. This isn't protection. This is intimidation. Same thing in our world. Thorn's finger rested on the trigger guard. Not touching, not pulling, just waiting. Ask him. Does he feel protected right now? Karen couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every instinct screamed run, but his legs wouldn't move. The baby reached toward Thorn. Tiny hand opening, closing. Thorn's aim wavered, just for a second, just long enough for something in his expression to crack. He doesn't know what you are, Karen whispered. He's just a baby. He's a target. Thorn's voice dropped. And until you understand that, you're both dead. Ezra's hand shot out, grabbed Thorn's wrist. The gun lowered, not disarmed, just redirected. The two brothers stared at each other. Silent conversation happening in the space between heartbeats. Then Thorn holstered the weapon. Get in the car, he said again, softer this time. Please. The word felt wrong coming from him, like a language he'd forgotten how to speak. Karen's legs finally moved. He climbed into the SUV. The midnight blue one, Ezra's. The door shut and locked automatically. Through the window, Karen watched the brothers argue. No sound, just body language. Ezra's controlled fury, Thorn's sharp defiance. Two alphas who looked like they might kill each other. The mark on Karen's wrist pulsed. 3 times, once for each brother. The baby grabbed Karen's finger, squeezed, and somehow, impossibly, Karen felt all 3 heartbeats sync with his own. Connected, bound, trapped. Ezra got in the driver's seat. Thorn took passenger. Neither spoke. The car pulled away from the building. Mrs. Chun stood in the window above, watching, recording. Her face said everything. You made your choice. Now live with it. Where are we going? Karen asked. Somewhere they can't reach you, Ezra said. Who's they? Thorn laughed. Cold. Sharp. Everyone. The drive lasted 30 minutes. Karen counted every second, every turn, every mile that took him further from the life he'd known, small, struggling, but his. They stopped in front of a house that didn't belong in Blackridge. Too big, too clean, too isolated. Gates that opened without anyone touching them. Cameras tracking their approach. This is a safe house, Ezra said. Rook property. No one comes here without clearance. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. Ezra met his eyes in the rearview mirror. There's a difference. Is there? No answer. Inside, the house was worse than the exterior. Too much space. Too much silence. Furniture that looked expensive but felt empty. Like a display home. Like no one had ever actually lived here. Thorn disappeared immediately. Ezra showed Karen to a room upstairs. Nursery already set up. Crib. Changing table. Supplies Karen couldn't afford in 10 lifetimes. How long have you been planning this? Karen asked. Since the mark activated. That was 4 days ago. We work fast. Karen set the carrier down. The baby was still sleeping. Still safe. Still unaware that his existence had shattered 4 lives. I didn't ask for this, Karen said. Neither did we. Ezra leaned against the doorframe. But the mark doesn't care what we want. Cares what we need. And what do you need? Ezra's wrist flexed. The mark visible beneath his sleeve. To keep you both alive long enough to figure out what the hell this bond means. It means I'm stuck. It means you're chosen. Ezra's voice hardened. Do you know how rare this is? Triplet alphas bonding to a single omega? It's not supposed to happen. The genetics don't allow it. But somehow, he gestured to the baby. He made it possible. He's 3 months old. He didn't make anything possible. His bloodline did. Our father's contingency. The heir that was supposed to die. Ezra's eyes locked on Karen. And you saved him. Why? Because he was dying. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Silence stretched between them. Karen could hear Thorn moving somewhere below. Heavy footsteps. Controlled rage looking for an outlet. He didn't mean it, Ezra said quietly. The gun. He wouldn't have. Yes, he would. Karen's voice was flat. And you know it. Ezra didn't deny it. The baby stirred. Karen lifted him from the carrier. Skin to skin. The mark pulsed. Warm. Steady. Grounding. I need supplies, Karen said. Formula. Diapers. Bottles. Already stocked. Check the closet. Karen opened it. Fully stocked. More than stocked. Months worth of everything. You were that sure I'd come here? We were that sure you had no other choice. The truth hit harder than the gun had. Karen sat in the rocking chair. The baby nestled against him. And for the first time in 4 days, Karen let himself feel the exhaustion. The fear. The weight of a bond he didn't understand tied to men he didn't trust. What happens now? He whispered. Ezra's expression softened. Just slightly. Now we teach you to survive us. He left, door clicking shut. Karen was alone with the baby and the burning mark and the knowledge that 3 alphas owned him whether he wanted it or not. Downstairs, a door slammed. Voices rose. Thorn and Ezra, arguing. Then Darius's voice cut through. Enough. Karen's wrist flared. All 3 brothers were here now. All 3 marks burning in unison. The bond tightened, and Karen realized this wasn't protection. It was possession. The baby looked up at him, eyes too knowing, too aware, and whispered a sound that wasn't a word but felt like one. Yours. Karen's breath stopped, because the baby wasn't talking to him. He was talking to the marks, to the bond, to the choice that had already been made. Would you fight the bond or accept it? Share your thoughts below. The bills stopped coming on Tuesday. Karen noticed because he'd been tracking them. Every late notice, every final warning, every threat of disconnection or eviction or repossession. He'd kept them all in a folder marked urgent in red pen that was really just code for impossible. Now the folder was empty, not paid, erased. Student loans he'd been dodging for 3 years. Gone from the credit report Ezra had pulled without asking permission. Medical debt from the time Karen broke his wrist in juvie. Vanished like it never existed. Even the $47 parking ticket from 2 months ago. Cleared. Karen stared at the laptop Ezra had provided. Screen glowing in the dark of his new room that wasn't really his. Numbers that didn't make sense. A financial history rewritten by people who could afford to make problems disappear. "You're welcome." Karen jumped. Darius stood in the doorway, silent. How long had he been there? "I didn't ask you to do this," Karen said. "You didn't have to." Darius moved into the room. Not threatening, just present. He had a way of filling space without crowding it. Like gravity worked differently around him. "The debt was leverage," Darius said. "Anyone looking for you would use it. Now they can't. So you made me disappear. I made you safe. Those aren't the same thing." Darius's jaw tightened. He sat on the edge of the bed, Karen's bed. Except it wasn't really his either. Nothing here was. "There's a non-profit," Darius said. "Legal protection for male omegas in vulnerable situations. We funded it 6 months ago. Anonymous donation. 50 million spread across 3 states. Karen's breath caught. "Why?" "Because the system is broken, and we have the resources to fix it." "You're not fixing it. You're controlling it." "Yes." Darius didn't flinch. "Because control means protection. And protection means you and the baby don't end up disappeared by people worse than us. There's no one worse than you." Darius's smile was cold. "You'd be surprised." The mark on Karen's wrist pulsed. He pressed his thumb against it. "Still invisible. Still burning." "How many others?" Karen asked quietly. "What? How many other omegas have you done this for?" "Erased their debts. Rewritten their histories. Made them safe." Darius was quiet for too long. Then, "None." The word hit like a confession. "Just me," Karen whispered. "Just you. Because of the mark. Because of the baby. And yes, because of the mark." Darius leaned forward. Elbows on knees. Hands clasped. "Do you know what it means? To share a bond across 3 bodies." "No. Neither do we. Our father engineered it. Genetic modification before we were born. He wanted perfect heirs. Perfect weapons. 3 alphas who couldn't be divided or conquered because we were already one." Darius's voice hardened. "But he didn't account for this. For the mark choosing someone outside the bloodline. I didn't choose it. The mark did. And now we're all bound, you, the baby, me, Ezra, Thorne. For lives connected by something none of us understand." Karen's hands shook. He folded them in his lap. "What if I want out?" "You can't." "What if I run?" "We'll follow." "What if I fight?" Darius's eyes met his. Gray. Honest. Terrifying. "Then we'll restrain you. Gently. But we'll do it." The truth was worse than the threat. Karen stood. Moved to the window. Outside. The gates glowed in the dark. Cameras tracking movement. Guards he couldn't see but knew were there. "This isn't protection," Karen said. "It's a cage. It's both." Behind him, Darius stood. Karen felt the shift in air. The proximity. The heat. "I know what you think of us," Darius said quietly. "Men who take what they want. Who rewrite rules to suit themselves. Who destroy anything that threatens their control. Am I wrong?" "No." Darius's hand hovered near Karen's shoulder. "Not touching. Not yet. But we're also the only thing standing between you and people who would kill the baby just to eliminate a threat." Karen turned. They were too close. Close enough to feel each other's breath. Close enough for the mark to burn hotter. "Who?" Karen asked. "Our father's enemies. His allies. Anyone who knows what the baby represents. A genetic anomaly that could dismantle decades of carefully constructed power. Then give him to them. Let them have him. Let me go." Darius's hand finally touched. Just his fingers. Just Cairn's wrist. Over the mark. Heat flared. "I can't," Darius whispered. "Even if I wanted to, the bond won't allow it." Cairn pulled back. The touch broke, but the heat remained. "Get out," Cairn said. Darius didn't argue, just left. Door closing with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. Cairn sank to the floor, back against the bed, head in his hands. The baby slept in the nursery next door. Safe, federal warm. And Cairn was trapped in a life he didn't choose with men who owned him in ways that had nothing to do with law or consent or fairness. His phone buzzed. New phone. Provided by Ezra. Untraceable. One message. Unknown number. Check your account. Cairn opened the banking app. Another account he didn't set up. Another system he didn't control. Balance, $50,000. Below it, a note. For the baby. For you. No strings. Cairn laughed. Empty. Bitter. Everything had strings. He deleted the message. Threw the phone across the room. It didn't break. Of course it didn't. Nothing here broke. Everything was too perfect. Too controlled. Too suffocating. The mark pulsed. And Cairn realized. The money. The erased debts. The legal protections. They weren't gifts. They were chains. Invisible. Inescapable. Woven by men who knew exactly how to own someone without ever saying the word. What would you do with the money? Tell us in the comments. The truth arrived in a folder marked classified. Cairn found it on the kitchen table. 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep. The baby was finally resting. 7 days in the safe house and the child had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. Almost. The folder was black. Unmarked except for the single word embossed in silver. Cairn's hands hovered over it. He knew opening it would change everything. He opened it anyway. Inside, documents, photos, DNA reports, a family tree that branched and twisted in ways that made his stomach turn. At the center, the baby. Real name, Asher Elijah Rook. Cairn's breath stopped. He'd been calling him Ashen. Close enough. Wrong enough. Birth certificate forged. Mother listed as deceased. Father listed as unknown. But the genetic report told the real story. Father Marcus Thaddeus Rook. The brother's father. The architect of the Rook Empire. Mother Amara St. James. Omega. Unregistered. Missing. Cairn flipped through photos. Amara was beautiful. Dark skin. Sharp eyes. Younger than Cairn. 23 in the last dated photo. Marked with the same geometric pattern that burned on Cairn's wrist. She'd been bonded too. The next document made Cairn's hands shake. Termination order. Approved. Date. 3 months ago. Subject. Amara St. James and infant heir. Reason. Bloodline contamination. Genetic instability. Threat to syndicate hierarchy. Authorized by Marcus Thaddeus Rook. Executed by pending. Pending. Not completed. Because the baby survived. Because Cairn found him. Because the mark chose. You weren't supposed to see that. Cairn spun. Thorn stood in the doorway. No weapon this time. Just exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Where is she? Cairn demanded. Amara. Where is she? Dead. The word was flat. Final. You're lying. I'm not. Thorn moved into the kitchen. Grabbed a glass. Filled it with water. Drank. She died 3 weeks after the baby was born. Hemorrhage. Complications our father refused to treat because treating her meant acknowledging the baby existed. Cairn's chest tightened. And you just let it happen? We didn't know. Thorn's voice cracked. Just barely. He hid it. Hid her. Hid the baby. We found out after. When the termination order surfaced. So you stopped it? No. Thorn set the glass down. We were too late. By the time we got to the location, the baby was already gone. Assumed dead. Except I found him. Except you saved him. Silence stretched between them. Cairn stared at the photo of Amara. 23. Bonded. Dead. She had the mark. Karen whispered. Same as me. Yes. So your father knew. He knew what the bond meant, and he tried to erase it anyway. Thorne's jaw clenched. Our father doesn't believe in bonds. He believes in control, and anything that threatens his control gets eliminated, including his own grandson, including anyone. Karen's wrist burned. He looked down. For the first time, he saw the mark fully. Not just heat, not just pain. The geometric pattern, visible now in the low light, matched Amara's exactly. Same design, same placement, same bond. She was alone, Karen said, voice breaking. She died alone and scared, and no one helped her. We would have, if we'd known. But you didn't. Thorne didn't argue. Karen gathered the documents, closed the folder. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Your father's still alive, Karen said. Yes. And he knows the baby survived. We've contained that information. For now. For now. Karen laughed. Empty. Bitter. So we're just waiting. Waiting for him to decide we're a threat. Waiting for the termination order to get updated. We're protecting you. You're delaying the inevitable. Karen met Thorne's eyes. Aren't you? Thorne's silence was answer enough. He'll come for us eventually, Karen whispered. Your father. He'll come and you'll have to choose him or us. We already chose. Did you? Thorne moved closer. Close enough that Karen could see the mark on his wrist too. Identical. Burning. I put a gun to your head 6 days ago, Thorne said quietly, and I couldn't pull the trigger. Do you know why? Karen shook his head. Because the bond wouldn't let me. Because every instinct I have, every piece of conditioning our father embedded, screamed at me to eliminate the threat. And I still couldn't do it. Thorne's voice dropped. So yes, we chose. Even when it destroys us. Karen's breath hitched. Thorne reached out. Slow. Careful. His fingers brushed Karen's wrist. Over the mark. The heat that flared wasn't painful anymore. It was answer. She deserved better, Karen said. Yes. The baby deserves better. Yes. I deserve better. Thorne's hand tightened. Just slightly. Yes. The mark pulsed. 3 times. 3 heartbeats. Connected. He'll come for us, Karen repeated. Let him. And for the first time, Karen saw what Thorne was really offering. Not protection. War. Upstairs, the baby started crying. Both men moved at once. Not thinking. Just responding. The bond had rules. And they were all learning to obey. Who do you think will win, the father or the sons? Drop your prediction below. The baby wouldn't stop crying. Not hungry. Not wet. Not tired. Just distressed. In a way that made Karen's wrist burn and his chest tighten and every instinct scream wrong, wrong, wrong. Hey, hey! Karen bounced him gently. Checked temperature. Normal. Checked breathing. Normal. Everything normal except the crying that didn't stop. Darius appeared in the doorway. Then Ezra. Then Thorne. All 3. Drawn by the sound. By the bond. What's wrong? Darius asked. I don't know. Karen's voice cracked. He won't stop. I've tried everything. Ezra moved forward. Reached for the baby. And the crying stopped. Just like that. The baby cooed. Reached for Ezra. Tiny fingers grabbing at air. Ezra's expression cracked. He took the baby. Held him awkwardly. Too stiff, too careful. Like he'd never held an infant before. He probably hadn't. But the baby settled. Immediately. Completely. Karen's wrist cooled. He needs all of us, Thorne said quietly. Not just you. The words hit harder than they should have. Because Karen had been trying to do this alone. To be enough. To prove he didn't need them. But the bond knew better. I'm leaving, Karen said. 3 pairs of eyes snapped to him. What? Darius's voice was cold. Not permanently. Just out. For a few hours. I need air. Space. Something that isn't this house. That's not safe. I don't care. Karen. I'm not asking permission. Karen's hands clenched. I'm telling you. I'm going out. You can follow me or not. But I'm going. Silence. Then Ezra, still holding the baby. Take Thorn. I don't need. You're not going alone. Non-negotiable. Ezra's tone left no room for argument. Thorn goes with you, keeps distance. But he goes. Karen wanted to fight, wanted to scream, wanted to prove he didn't need their permission or protection or presence. But the mark pulsed, and he was too tired to fight. Fine. 30 minutes later, Karen stood outside for the first time in 8 days. Real air, real sky, real world that kept moving while his head stopped. Thorn leaned against the SUV, 10 feet away, close enough to intervene, far enough to pretend he wasn't there. Where do you want to go? Thorn asked. Anywhere that isn't here. They drove in silence. Thorn didn't ask questions, didn't push, just drove. They ended up at a diner 40 miles outside Blackridge. The kind of place that served breakfast all day and didn't ask why you looked like you hadn't slept in a week. Karen ordered coffee, didn't touch it, just stared at the steam rising. She was brave, Thorn said suddenly. Karen looked up. What? Amara. The baby's mother. Thorn's hands wrapped around his own mug. She knew what our father was, what he'd do if he found out about the baby. And she still chose to keep him. Chose, like she had options. She did. She could have terminated early, could have run before the bond fully formed, could have. Thorn stopped. She chose to fight, even when it killed her. Karen's throat tightened. You knew her. Briefly. She worked in one of our financial offices. Low level. Invisible. The kind of person our father would never notice. Thorn's jaw clenched. Until she wasn't invisible anymore. Because she got marked. Because she got pregnant. The mark came after. Same as yours. Karen's wrist throbbed. I didn't ask for this. Neither did she. But she carried it anyway. Literally. Thorn met his eyes. You remind me of her. That same defiance. That same refusal to break even when everything's designed to make you. I'm not brave. You're here. Still fighting. Still protecting him. That's brave. Karen's hands shook. He set them in his lap. What happens when your father finds us? We stop him. How? Thorn smiled. Sharp. Dangerous. However we have to. The words should have been reassuring. They weren't, because Karen heard what Thorn's expression locked. We have a problem, he said. Karen's wrist flared. He knows. 2 words. Infinite weight. Your father, Karen asked. Worse. The board. Our father's allies. They know about the baby. They know about you. And they've issued an ultimatum. Which is? Darius's eyes locked on Karen. Gray. Cold. Honest. Eliminate the Omega and the baby. Or they eliminate us. The world stopped. Karen felt the mark burn. Felt 3 heartbeats sync with his own. Felt the bond tighten until breathing hurt. How long do we have? Thorn asked. 72 hours. 3 days. 72 hours to live or die or prove the bond was stronger than the Empire built to destroy it. Karen looked at the house, at the gates, at the cameras, at the cage that was supposed to keep him safe. What if I leave? He whispered. What if I take the baby and disappear? Would that buy you time? No. Ezra's voice came from behind. He held the baby, still calm, still settled. Because they're not just hunting you, they're hunting the bloodline. And as long as he exists. He looked down at the baby. We're all targets. Karen's legs gave out. He sat on the ground, head in hands. The baby cooed. 3 alphas stood around him. Brothers, warriors, men designed to be unbreakable. And a single Omega had fractured them all. So what do we do? Karen asked. Darius crouched in front of him. Close, too close. But the proximity felt grounding instead of threatening. We fight, Darius said. Together, all 5 of us. I'm not a fighter. You survived this long. That makes you a fighter. Karen's wrist pulsed. 3 times. The mark answering. The bond choosing. 72 hours, Karen repeated. 72 hours. And somewhere, 1,000 miles away, an old man smiled and signed an execution order that would end for lives, or start a war. The bond would decide. What would you sacrifice to protect someone you love? Comment below. The old man arrived at dawn. No warning, no dramatic entrance. Just a car pulling up to the gates and a figure stepping out like he owned the ground he walked on. Because he did. Marcus Thaddeus Rook. Karen watched from the window. The baby slept in his arms, blissfully unaware his grandfather had come to kill him. He's alone, Ezra said, standing beside Karen, tense, coiled, ready. He's never alone, Darius corrected. Look at the perimeter. Karen looked. First nothing, then movement, shadows that weren't shadows, men positioned at every angle, snipers on the ridge, tactical teams hidden in vehicles that looked civilian but weren't. 20 men, maybe more, all waiting. He came to negotiate, Thorne said, but his hand rested on his weapon, just in case. The intercom buzzed. Marcus's voice, smooth, controlled, paternal in ways that made Karen's skin crawl. May I come in? I'd like to meet my grandson. Darius pressed the button. No, I'm an old man, unarmed. Surely you can grant me this. You're never unarmed, and you lost the right to call him your grandson when you signed his termination order. Silence on the other end. Then, I made a mistake. The words hung in the air. Impossible. Unbelievable. Marcus Rook didn't make mistakes. He's lying, Ezra said. Obviously, Thorne agreed, but Darius's expression shifted. Calculating, weighing options. What do you want? Darius asked through the intercom. To make amends. To meet the Omega who saved him. Marcus paused. To see if the bond is real. Karen's wrist flared. All three brothers' marks burned in response. Marcus felt it, even from outside. Karen saw the old man's hand go to his wrist. Saw the recognition. It's real, Marcus said quietly. Isn't it? No one answered. Let me in, please. Just me. No weapons. No team. Just a grandfather meeting his grandson. Absolutely not, Ezra said. We should hear him out, Thorne countered. Why? So he can get close enough to finish what he started. So we can end this without more bloodshed. There's always bloodshed with him. Darius held up a hand. Silence. Then he looked at Karen. Your choice. Karen's breath stopped. What? This bond, this mark, it chose you. Not us. You. So you decide. Do we let him in or do we fight? Karen stared at the baby, at the three brothers, at the impossible situation that had become his life. If we fight, people die, Karen said slowly. Maybe us, maybe him, maybe all of us. Yes, Darius agreed. And if we let him in, he might kill us anyway. Also yes. Karen's hands tightened on the baby. The mark pulsed. Warm, steady, connected. Let him in, Karen said. But I talked to him first. Alone. Absolutely not, Ezra started. Alone, Karen repeated. If he wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. He came here for a reason. I want to know what it is. The brothers exchanged looks. Silent conversation. Years of shared experience compressed into seconds. Finally, Darius nodded. 10 minutes later, Marcus Thaddeus Rook sat in the living room that wasn't really a living room because no one actually lived here. Karen sat across from him, the baby in his lap. 3 alphas positioned at every exit. Marcus was older than Karen expected. 70, maybe more, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, the kind of eyes that had built empires and destroyed anyone who threatened them. You're afraid of me, Marcus observed. Yes. Good. You should be. No threat. Just fact. But I'm not here to hurt you. Then why are you here? Marcus's eyes dropped to the baby. Something shifted in his expression. Not love. Not exactly. More like recognition. Loss. Regret. I had a daughter once, Marcus said quietly. Decades ago. Before I built all this. Before I became... He gestured vaguely. This. She died. Complications during birth. The baby died too. Karen's grip tightened on the baby. I swore I'd never feel that pain again, Marcus continued. So I engineered my sons. Perfect. Controlled. Designed to survive anything. And for 40 years it worked. Until the baby. Until the baby, Marcus agreed. An anomaly I didn't account for. A genetic wild card that threatened everything I built. So I did what I always do. I tried to eliminate the threat. But you failed. No, you intervened. The distinction mattered. Karen understood that. The mark, Marcus said. May I see it? Karen hesitated, then rolled up his sleeve. The geometric pattern was fully visible now. Black lines spiraling from wrist to elbow. Alive, pulsing. Marcus stared. His own wrist flexed. No mark. Never had been. I created the genetic sequence, Marcus said. But I never carried it. That was punishment, I suppose. Or protection. To engineer something I could never fully control. And now it's controlling them. And you. Karen didn't deny it. Marcus leaned back. Tired. Human in ways Karen hadn't expected. I came to offer you a choice, Marcus said. A real one. Not coercion. Not manipulation. Just choice. What choice? Walk away. You and the baby. I'll provide resources. Protection. New identities. You'll never see my sons again. Never feel the bond again. You'll be free. Karen's breath stopped. Or, Marcus continued. Stay. Accept the bond. Accept my sons. Accept that your life will never be simple or safe or easy again. But you'll have them. And they'll have you. Why are you offering this? Because I'm dying. The words hit like glass breaking. 6 months. Maybe less. Cancer. The kind that doesn't care how much money you have. Marcus's smile was bitter. And I'd like to die knowing I didn't destroy the last piece of my bloodline. Karen looked at the baby. Then at the 3 brothers standing guard. Darius. Steady, controlled, carrying weight he never asked for. Ezra, sharp, calculating, softening in ways he didn't know how to name. Thorn, dangerous, defiant, learning to choose love over violence. The mark pulsed. 3 heartbeats. For lives. 1 impossible choice. If I walk away, Karen said slowly, what happens to them? They continue. The empire continues. The cycle continues. And if I stay? Marcus met his eyes. Then maybe something breaks. Maybe something heals. I don't know. But you'll find out together. Silence stretched. The baby grabbed Karen's finger. Squeezed. Cooed. And Karen made his choice. I'm staying. Marcus nodded. Like he'd known all along. Then I release my claim. The bloodline is yours now. All of you. Together. He stood. Walked to the door. Paused. Protect him, Marcus said. Not to Karen. To his sons. All of them. The way I should have. Then he left. The tactical teams withdrew. The snipers disappeared. The old man drove away. And Karen was left with 3 alphas. 1 baby. And a bond that refused to break. Darius approached first. Knelt in front of Karen. Pressed his forehead to Karen's. Not claiming. Not owning. Choosing. Are you sure? Darius whispered. No, Karen admitted. But I'm here anyway. Ezra and Thorn moved closer. Forming a circle. Incomplete without Karen. Complete with him. The baby cooed. The marks pulsed. And somewhere, impossibly, Karen felt a 4th heartbeat join theirs. Not Amara. Not Marcus. Something else. Something new. Family. Not born. Not engineered. Chosen. The road ahead would be hard. Dangerous. Full of threats they couldn't predict and enemies they couldn't control. But they'd face it together. For lives bound by a mark that refused to fade. And a baby who would grow up knowing he was worth fighting for. Worth dying for. Worth living for. The snow outside had stopped. Morning light broke through clouds. And Karen realized, sometimes power wasn't loud. Sometimes justice didn't arrive with apologies. Sometimes the most revolutionary act was letting someone live without knowing who saved them. But more than that, sometimes being saved meant choosing to stay. Even when leaving would be easier, the mark pulsed one final time. Warm, steady, home. And Karen whispered to the baby, to the brothers, to the impossible future they'd chosen. We're going to be okay. Not a promise, a hope. And sometimes hope was enough. Thank you for following Karen's journey. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that inspires. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Together, we create a community of hope, resilience, and love. See you in the next one.